All right, YouTube. So today's video, we're talking about a very, I guess it could become a controversial subject, but it shouldn't be, especially if you sort of have a little bit of skill in photography. So what are we talking about? We're talking about auto ISO today. And this is something that's been on my mind for quite some time. We'll bring up some topics and we'll bring up some concepts in this video, which we won't dive deep into. We're going to stay focused onto auto ISO and how auto ISO has actually ruined the photography, but it can also be a blessing. So it's a blessing and a curse all in one. And do you know the difference on what is it that you're doing with it to get the most out of all this money that you're spending on, beautiful gear? Because there's no point buying this stuff if you don't understand how the camera's exposure system works and what it's actually doing to your photos in the camera. A lot of people truly just leave it up to the camera to make these decisions, and then you wonder why you don't have consistency in your work. So with that, if you're here for that, please stay. I hope you will. And, just sit back, relax. And it's more of a conversational type of video. And some of the very deep dive topics that I'll throw out here are going to be reserved for members only that truly want to take their photography to the next level. So a lot of that content is being actually built. It's being planned for the next 12 months. So if you do become a member, there's going to be a lot of value coming starting February that we've been planning and would like to do. So it's going to be in a workshop style type of things, videos, which will really help you elevate your game, or even if you're an enthusiast or if you're a professional, it doesn't really matter. So with that, let's get right into this video. Auto ISO. Auto ISO has been around for a while, and it has evolved, right? By not just, brands like Canon, Sony, Nikon, they all have it, right? Fuji has it, everyone has it. Olympus, Pentax even has it. So why are brands putting this in there? Let me say a couple of things here which might actually which might force some people to actually click off of the video and leave, because they might get a little butthurt. Brands come out with these features and feature sets because they know they can go after the masses that don't really understand what to do with their cameras. That's why these things are there. Let me rephrase a little bit, or let me actually add a qualifying statement to that. Professionals use auto ISO as well, but they know what to do with it so they don't ruin their images, generate digital noise and problems in their files, because they know what they're doing. Amateurs have no idea. They're just relying on the camera to do it all, which is fine if that makes you happy. But that's exactly what the brands are looking for. You being able to pick up a camera, just point somewhere, and bam, it gives you just a perfect shot. So you think it is, right? When you shoot 30 of those same shots, you realize that each one of those 30 is different, because the camera is making a calculated decision every single time you press the shutter button. This also happens when you shoot 30 frames per second, 40 frames per second now with cameras, 100 frames per second. It is calculating every single time what that exposure should be and adjusts it and changes it. So do you get consistency in the work? You don't. It changes. Now, if the subject is static, the use of auto ISO should be limited, in my opinion. If the subject is constantly moving, yes, you can use it, but with some careful considerations, and do you really understand what you're doing? That's what I meant about. That's the difference when the professionals are actually shooting with it. Most people don't pay attention to this. So what am I getting at? Auto ISO was a way where, sorry, I'm just adjusting this guy. Auto ISO is a way, it was a way out for people that did not really want to learn photography, but they wanted to buy cool, expensive gear like this. Have, show off. I mean, and again, you're showing it off in a nice cabinet. It looks nice, spent a lot of money. Guy must be good if he's got all this stuff in the back, right? Wrong. Completely wrong. Just because you can acquire gear doesn't mean you can take a damn good shot. I look at shots from cameras that are 5,000 plus per camera, right? $6,000 to $20,000 for the lens. When you put that combination together, are you getting $15,000 worth of shots? I mean, to something beautiful, worthwhile looking at? No, you're not. From 80 to 90% of the people that buy these things. The upper echelon of this, the 10% that really know the game, whatever the genre, be it weddings, be it, wildlife, that kind of thing. So we'll use weddings and wildlife in this video, in this conversation, so you can understand. And then when we have the other content coming, which is going to be highly targeted to get you to really understand how to get the most out of shooting a wedding or a fashion runway or something like that, and also shooting wildlife. Let's start with wildlife. Same concepts will apply to weddings, and we'll come to wedding because everyone buys big lenses and fast cameras because of wildlife. They all want to be Nat Geo photographers, which is fine. That's good. It's a good aspiration to have, good dream to have, but learn your skill in craft. Once you know your skill in craft, you will enjoy your gear 10 times more, and it will become less about the gear and more about you. That's the idea. If it's not about you and it's always about your gear, oh, you said this about Nikon, you're a hater. Oh, you said this about Sony, you're a hater. Oh, you said this about Canon, you're a fanboy. That clearly tells me that you're not grounded with whatever you have. Because when you have something that satisfies you, you should be able to take something that someone else is selling you, as long as they're not manipulating the basics of photography. And that's what I'm talking about in this video. It's the basics. Do you understand exposure? There are people out there on YouTube that will tell you, if you're a wildlife type of photographer, nature is always changing. Well, no shit. It's changing by the minute. So just leave it in auto ISO. Do this and do that. Put it in this range, that range. Okay, fine. Is that the best advice? No, it's not. Nature is always changing. The question is, are you adapting to the nature? Or is your camera adapting to the changes in nature? Auto ISO is allowing your camera to adapt to nature rather than you, the photographer. The moment you make that decision, you no longer are in control, my friend, of your shot. You're not. It's true. I'm not making it up. I'm trying to find a photo here. I don't know what this is. All right, this will work. It's a photo of my dog. Same concept will actually apply to, let's say you're shooting an eagle. Let me tell you what an auto ISO would have done here. In an auto ISO situation, the camera would have seen this scene and said, ooh, bright light. It's very white. What is it going to do? Two things. It's going to reduce the ISO to the lowest base ISO available. If it can't go any lower, what is it going to do? It's going to start to sit there and say, either close down the aperture, if it's able to, and or increase the shutter speed to make it darker because it's too bright. That's how exposure works. Now, if you have those other two parameters locked in, it's looking at this. All of a sudden, you take that shot. It drops your ISO to the lowest ISO, base ISO available. What happens to the shadow area now? You just generated digital noise in this area on your photo without even realizing. That's how digital sensors work. This is why metering for the whites is the most important thing to understand. If you can't understand metering for the whites and the 18% gray that your sensor is doing, my friend, you need to find a new hobby. You're wasting your money buying all this gear back here. So I was able to capture all the detail in the whites and all the detail in the shadows. And guess what it does? Look here. All the detail. It's all there. So when you shoot a bird like an eagle, let's say this is an eagle. The head is white. Again, illustration, so this is like imagine, right? Head is white. Rest of the bird, other than the tail on the bottom, which is white, is really dark. So when you leave it in auto ISO, what is the camera doing? It sees the bright part, then it sees 80% of the body being dark. What does it do? Increase the ISO. When you really should have been shooting it at 1/60th of a second, ISO 160, now all of a sudden you have a shot because you got auto ISO that made a determination based on the darker area that I am going to raise the ISO to the highest limit, whatever that is. If you set your limit to 800, it'll go to 800. If you set it to 1600, it'll go to 1600. If it can. If it needs to go that high, it will. But what did you do in the process? This head of the eagle and the tail of the eagle, blown out. Your photo is useless. If you are truly into wildlife, and if you have a bald eagle photo where the head and the tail are overexposed, that photo is useless, my friends. It is. Don't even post it on social media and make a fool out of yourself. This is why auto ISO is so dangerous. But we have professionals teaching people, oh, just set the limit lower. You still got this phenomena going on. Right? Other situation. Let's say you become a little bit more advanced and you're like, I did, spot metering on the freaking head of that eagle and this and that and the other, and then I shot it, but I was using auto ISO. So you spot metered on this and it said bright, 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 bright. Very good. Move the ISO all the way down to its lowest. Now this part here, down here, is totally dark. Well, which is fine. Crush the blacks. Heard that term? Nikon is notorious for this. They crush their blacks. So it looks like there's inherent contrast. Sony and Canon sensors do the complete opposite. They don't crush their blacks, so it looks like they have inherently more dynamic range. Is one right or wrong? No, it's just how the brands process their raw files. This is very important to understand your gear. That whole dark area that you got now, the moment you start messing with the sliders, if your sensor is not good enough, you got just absolute noisy blah down here. That you're trying to recreate something and then you throw it into topaz and this and that, and then You complain, Topaz creates all these other artifacts. Of course it does, because there's no information available. Once you blow the information out, or in either direction, what, you think software is just going to magically do something? It might. So, now let's talk about the elephant in the room. How do we fix this? You become a member. And you learn how to actually shoot correctly. Not saying don't shoot auto ISO, shoot auto ISO. But learn how to understand the differences here and the problems, and be able to shoot without auto ISO perfect exposures, even if nature is changing, before enabling auto ISO, and your experience as a photographer will go tenfold higher. And regardless of the camera system you use, Nikon, Canon, Sony, Pentax, whatever, you will get perfect exposures every single time. Auto ISO, as I said before, can be a blessing or a major curse. Now I'm going to talk about something very important for the next few minutes. So really pay attention if you made it this far. Why do you think we have auto ISO in every camera? Because people have figured out one thing. They take a picture, even here, on a cell phone, and then you start editing, which is software. Lightroom, Luminar Neo, Capture One, all of these different things. Topaz denoise, I just mentioned that. DxO Mark has their own noise reduction thingy. Have you noticed why we have so many noise reduction software that have popped up in the last 10 years? And prior to that, it wasn't there. Because the skill level of the people shooting has gone into the dumps. Because they realize the mistakes that most people are going to continue to make. So what do? I just pay $9.99, I throw it into the software, bada bing, bada boom, all the noise is gone. Yes, the noise is gone, but you also create other things that are problems which you are not going to be able to see, but a professional can see it right away and say, amateur hour. They can tell. But when you tell that amateur that you really are an amateur with a very expensive camera and lens, they turn into a fanboy and they start attacking you because they can't handle it. You gotta be able to do exposure back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Here's my settings for this video that I'm shooting right now. Exactly that is what's on my screen on this professional Sony camcorder. That's exactly what is on there. ISO 640, 3.2, right? ISO 640, 3.2, 60th of a second. 30 frames per second, 60th of a second. How much fixing am I going to need to do to my face and stuff on this video? Leave this to auto ISO? What do you think it's going to do? You want me to try it right now? Watch. Here. You have this light. I am going to try to move it to auto ISO. Hang on. Where is the ISO button? Hang on. Let me get the ISO button. It's right here. Okay. Here's ISO. So I am going to start going the other way. And this is down to 160. This is down at 640. And let me go ahead and hold the ISO button and I'll go into auto. Here's auto. This is auto ISO 3.2. 30 frames per second. And guess what the ISO is now? It's not 640. It's down to 400. Now what do I got here? And what do I have here? Noise. Noise. Just proved it to you. This guy, it don't lie. Let me go back to 640. I can already see it on the histogram. It's already moved to the left, but it knows that there are some white areas, which are these lights. So I have information in the 4th and 5th quadrant of the histogram. Ooh, that's another topic that you guys need to learn how to use. That's an advanced technique we'll talk about later. It's seeing this and saying, I got enough information, go lower. So it says 400 it is. But then I come back over and I said, no, 400 it's not. It's wrong. Oh, wait, something just happened. Let me show you this. Watch this. Right here, when I sit back here, it's 400. Right here, when I come here, it's still 400. 400. Now watch what happens when I put this in front of it. 640. Oops. Now watch what happens here. Back to 500. Watch what happens when I do this. Still 400. Now it's at 2,500th of a second. Now it's at 320th of a second. Now it's at 400 again. Is that the kind of videos and photos you want to make? All over the place? That's what I call accidental photography. Stop doing that and work on your craft. This is a clear indication of what the problem is with auto ISO. So I'm going to go here now and I'm going to tell the camera, you're very, very smart, but I am going to tell you what it is. And it's ISO 640. And here we are. I am in total control of this video and its exposure now. No matter what I do, anything I stick in front of it, regardless of the color, nothing happens. Same thing happens to birds in flight. When they fly in the sky, no problem. The moment they go in front of trees or in front of a mountain or something, guess what happens to the exposure? Auto ISO. Oh boy, increase the ISO. I got some dark. Bird is blown out. You got shit shots. And then you actually sit there and try to fix them and then you brag about it. How awesome this is. Look at this. Oh my God, look at the dynamic range. That's stupidity. That's not photography. That's stupidity. That's what I call accidental photography. Sign up, become a member. That's all I can tell you. It's time to take your photography into your own hands and take all this money that you've spent in this gear and get the most out of it. So you can create things like this that actually look beautiful. And they're perfectly exposed with tons of detail in the whites. We'll talk about fashion. We'll talk about fashion runway, how to shoot it. We'll talk about lots of different things coming up. So, all of you, want to be paparazzis, you'll probably enjoy it. So, I know this video is a little bit long, but I think it's about time that these things get said and a lot of things be brought to light. So, like, subscribe, be nice to each other, go out there, create your magic. And take what I said to you today. We're about to get a massive snowstorm. Last time I checked, the snow was white. If you don't know how to meter for the white, your pictures ain't gonna look too good, especially with auto ISO. Give it a shot. Let me know your results. I'll talk to you in the next one. Thanks.